We are going to be making a taco soup pressure canner recipe today in our Tfal 22 quart pressure canner. So in this pot right now, I have 4 cups of black beans and 4 cups of navy beans that I'm just rinsing off really good in some water, and picking through and just making sure like any of the beans that are split or half, you try to pull them out as you go. So we've put the beans in some fresh water after rinsing them really well a couple of times. We've covered them with a couple of inches of water, and now we are putting them on the stove to bring them to a boil. Once it hits a boil, we're going to cover it, turn them off the heat, and just let them sit for an hour. This is kind of a par cooking method because we are then going to be putting these beans into the soup and heating that up all together with the other ingredients, and then we're going to be pressure canning them all. So we don't want our beans to be mush by the time we go through all of this process. So while the beans are cooking on the stove top, I've pulled out our large 18 quart roaster, electric roaster. We could also heat up these ingredients in a pot, but this will just keep the stove clear so that we can get the pressure cannon on it once we've heated it up. So while that's happening, we have 2 quarts of homemade bone broth chicken stock that I had made. It's like a combination of chicken and veggie. I've pulled out 2 pints of homemade salsa that I water bath canned this past fall, and then another pint of diced tomatoes that I had also home canned this past fall from tomatoes from our garden. So I'm just going to start dumping those in. So I've also gone ahead and added a jar of just pasta sauce that we had in the pantry, just to add a little bit more bulk to the broth. I've also gone ahead and added 2 cups of just frozen corn. And then for seasoning, I went ahead and I have kind of a homemade taco seasoning mix that I've made, and I've thrown in about 4 tablespoons of that, and we'll start there and see where it goes. A lot of the stuff that was canned, like the salsa, has a lot of spices already in it. So we'll see what this leads to and go from there. I went ahead and added 2 more quarts of water to the broth, and then about 2 cups of diced bell peppers. We had a mix of yellow, red, and orange. So I am just browning up 2 pounds of deer meat that was shot this fall, and 1 onion that I chopped up. I also should mention that when I said 4 cups of beans or 8 cups of beans, it's 8 cups of semi-cooked. So I put that into the soup. So this is leftovers that I'll be using to make more baked beans or something else. But I did add the 8 cups to the roaster. But this is 2 pounds of deer meat or venison that I will be adding to the soup as well. So after everything cooked in the roaster for about an hour or so, I've just gone ahead and got some clean pint jars, and I've scooped soup into each one, and we are going to pressure can it. So I have my pressure canner started. We're going to also do a little bit of extra baked beans at the same time. We have loaded up the T-Fal with 16 pint jars. We've locked it in. It is set to the steam setting, and we have put the heat to high. We're going to, once we start seeing a steady stream coming from the vent, we'll start timing for 10 minutes. Then we're going to be switching it to 2, which is 10 pounds of pressure for our elevation. And then we're going to be running these for 75 minutes at the 10 pounds of pressure for the pint-sized jars. We've been allowing it to vent for the last 10 minutes. So now that it has been doing a steady stream for venting for 10 minutes, we're going to flip it to 2 on the Tfal pressure canner 22 quart. That represents 10 pounds of pressure, and that's what we need for our elevation. Essentially now we're going to wait until it gets into kind of the 2 range and starts to vent again a steady stream. Then we're going to start our timer for 75 minutes. You're going to want to watch it because you don't want it to lower in pressure while it's pressure canning. Once you hit that 75, you want to maintain a steady pressure. If it does dip below what you're needing in terms of pressure, you have to start the timer over again once you can get the timer back up to where it needs to be. So we just hit our 75 minutes. So we are turning the heat off and just going to leave the pressure canner. Don't touch it. Definitely don't try to open it. And we're just going to leave it where it's at until it loses, kind of hits zero, and then we can kind of come back. Once the pressure canner has come down from pressure, you can spin the gauge to the open setting and then open the lid away from you just in case there's any extra steam in there, and then use your jar lifters to just carefully lift the jars out onto a towel. You don't want to put the hot jars on a cold surface. Try not to tilt the jars while you're lifting them out of the canner. Just gently place them down and then let them sit undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. You should start to hear pinging just like that as the cans are sealing.